Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where investors, with a special emphasis on couples, begin, continue, and deepen their journey to financial freedom together using the powerful vehicle of real estate investing to do it. Today, we've got a powerhouse on the show. His name is Rob Beardsley, and Rob oversees acquisitions and capital markets for Lone Star Capital and has acquired over $100 million of multifamily real estate. He's evaluated thousands of opportunities using proprietary underwriting models and published the #1 book on multifamily underwriting, The Definitive Guide to Underwriting Multifamily Acquisitions. Rob, so great to have you on. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Cool. Well, so the first thing we like to do is we like to start out with where you started out. So why don't you walk us through some of your experiences and where that aha moment came in, where you realized that real estate investing was right for you?
Sure. So my story began really early on. I was exposed to real estate, really when I was still in diapers. My parents ran a residential brokerage firm in Silicon Valley. So they were buying and selling homes on behalf of their clients. And my dad was also involved in some development construction projects, mostly pretty much all on the residential side. And the key distinction there was the transactional nature of those ventures, right? Whether it's servicing clients for buying and selling their primary residences or for doing a fix and flip type of strategy for single family homes. And so at the end of the day, my family, after all those years, never really accumulated assets or built equity. And also they were, I could see it for myself, but they were also telling me that, hey, what we're doing is very stressful. We work a lot. And whether we make a lot of money or a little money in a given year, we're just working nonstop. And we don't necessarily have anything to show for it as far as assets. And so, looking at that, I wasn't particularly inspired to do something similar. So I just kind of went along my business. But growing up in Silicon Valley, I also saw the technology side of things and the startup scene and had that influence. So my parents basically said, don't do this real estate stuff. It's a headache. Go into tech. You can be, make it big there. So I went to school for computer science. And while I was studying computer science in college, I was doing my own research, just being intellectually curious, looking at different ways to invest, whether it's the stock market or real estate, and just being curious. And I essentially circled back to real estate and felt that, yeah, wow, real estate's a really straightforward way to make money. It's a long-term game. I always liked the idea of delayed gratification and being patient and things like that. So kind of the buy it, hold styles of real estate investing really fit my model and personality best. So when I did kind of start digging into real estate, I really had that aha moment for multifamily. And I saw, I actually, turns out I knew a lot about single family because of just being around my parents' business and helping them in their single family business, so that when I started digging into multifamily, I understood a lot. The foundations and the basics were easy for me to grasp. And so I just started making a lot of progress in that regard. So that was kind of my initial situation to kind of get me pointed in this right direction.
That's awesome, Rob. Thank you for sharing that story. And I myself kind of grew up in a real estate investing family and entrepreneurship. I'm just curious, your parents told you to not go into real estate. And then when you did, what did they say? How did they feel about that?
Yeah, my parents have always been supportive of whatever I've been working on. So they've always been supportive. But I'm trying to think back to anything specific that when I was sharing my passion about real estate, what they felt. I can't really remember anything, but I just know that they've always been supportive. So, well, I know for a fact they, were happy to see me kind of pursue the more traditional path of go to school, probably, right, go to school, computer science, then get a tech job in Silicon Valley, and then kind of take it from there. I'm sure they weren't super pleased when I said, hey, you know what, I actually want to start this real estate business and I'm dropping out of college. So that is a tough thing for them to wrap their head around at first. So, but nonetheless, they've always been very supportive.
Oh, that's awesome. And you mentioned that they did mostly residential, single family. Now that they're kind of seeing you and all of your success, are there things that you're teaching them about the multifamily space or real estate in general that they didn't know about?
Absolutely. Yeah. So starting out, and still to this day, there's lots to learn from my parents. But when we started out kind of learning, I was showing them what I was learning on the multifamily side, and so they were learning with me together. And after kind of going through a few deals and getting more experience, I was able to essentially prove the concept to them. And over time, through this process, they've actually gone through a few year period of winding down their residential business and essentially retiring from that business. And now they've focused full time on passively and slightly actively investing their capital in multifamily. So it's been a big change for our family. And I would say pretty much all in all in a very good way.
So I think that this is super powerful, Rob. The fact that you've been able to take a passion that seems like it's more like a family undertaking and kind of tweaked it a little bit and been the inspiration for your family to be able to go into multifamily, which is awesome. Now, there was something in your story that kind of glossed over that was a quick kind of transition between, what your education was and then what you ended up doing. What I want to explore is that I'm trying to put myself in your situation. You just graduated school, or you're in the middle of graduating school or dropping out, right? Whatever, however you want to take this. And your experience has been single families, or at least transactional real estate. And what I want to understand a little bit more is, how did you connect the dots that multifamily, or, something like in the commercial realm, was a place that you wanted to be? It was something where you just kind of said, well, we just went in this direction, but I want to explore that a little bit more, how you selected it and why, because you're an intelligent person. And so I want to help drive that decision home also for other people who are maybe at the same crossroads.
Yeah. So I'm a number cruncher, and I've always kind of thought about potential scenarios and doing types of analysis. So just it's a pretty simple situation of looking at the amount of transactions that you'd have to do on the single family side to achieve the level of scale that multifamily can provide. It's a lot of work. And so whether I've known it explicitly or not, I've always been about, how do I put in the least amount of effort to get the maximum result, which jokingly, I often call that as lazy. And it is true. I mean, isn't that true? That sounds kind of lazy, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, that's really what we all want. We all want to be maximum. We all want to have maximum efficiency. So, right, we kind of have this, in my opinion, slightly toxic work culture in America and other parts of the world that, oh, the more you work, the better you are. And I work 10 hours today. Oh, that's nothing. I work 12 hours today. Well, we actually should be bragging in the opposite, right? Oh, I worked only 5 hours today. Oh yeah, well, I worked 4 hours. So, I mean, sometimes that's not an option, right? But I'm kind of starting to kind of lean into that direction and think, okay, well, how do I work less and make more and optimize? But anyway, so with all those number crunchings and that type of perspective, I just felt that with multifamily, I could scale. And the most important part of this that I think people can take away is that I was young enough and naive enough to just think that I could go big and not have to, because so many people I talked to, my parents included, felt that they would have to go single family to the duplex, to the fourplex, and so forth, right? To the 10 unit, to the 20 unit. And no, why can't you just go to the 50 unit or to the 100 unit or to the 200 unit? And the younger you are. So I think there's a good combination of youthful ignorance and then also having the ability to take risk, right? Because it's a different thing of, oh, I'm going to leave my high paying job and I have a family and I'm going to go and start this versus, oh, well, I'm just young and I can take this risk. So I think those were kind of the key things for me that allowed me to take what many would perceive as very large risks.
Again, I want to add another layer to this too, because I want to try to bring myself to the point where you are in your career when you're trying to take down your first property. When you're trying to take your first property down with this mentality, this naivete, right, that you have as a young investor, right? What did it take to get across the finish line? First of all, can you explain what that first deal was like? And then after that, I want to hear what your family thought about that after you were able to get that first big one under your belt.
Yeah. So the first one's really important for many reasons. And it's also the hardest one to do. And the hardest thing that there's many hurdles, and we could kind of go over some of them. But I think the biggest one is raising equity, right? If you are doing a deal that requires outside capital, that's going to be the biggest hurdle because you simply have no track record. And it's very hard for you to convince someone to trust you with their capital. Frankly, why would they, right? It's a really big deal. And so you have that to get over. And so the way to get over that is to build the right team around you. And so that way, since you aren't the man or woman, then you need to have a team that you can point to that every single thing is taken care of, right? We've got the best of this person, we've got the best of this, and this. So it's all ready to go. And you just kind of put all the pieces together. And there's a lot of value that comes your way just kind of by being that person that brings everything together. However, with that being said, it's expensive to do that. And it being your first deal, people are going to want to be greedy with you and say, well, you don't really know what you're doing. This is your first deal. I'll come in and help you, but let me take this big chunk of the deal or something like that. So there's scenarios like that. But the thing that helped me, one of the things that helped me through our first deal was I told myself that it doesn't really matter how much money I made on it or what kind of deal I struck with all the different partners, because closing it would be the most important thing I could do. And it would, even if I made zero money from it, it would be so valuable from an experience perspective, from a relationship perspective, track record, everything. So that's what I told myself. I just kept working, and just thought about it as an investment or as an education. So that's what kind of emotionally and mentally got me through, right? Some people could get upset and say, well, this is my deal, or however you came of it. I found it, I put it under contract, or whatever it is, right? You have to be humble and just do what it takes to get it done.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because now I'm like, it's like getting the wheels spinning. I want to ask all these questions. So as a new young investor, and you mentioned sort of like this, like Derek was saying, this naivete, and where did you learn that mindset? Because not a lot of new investors maybe know where to start or have that maybe optimism or just shoot for the moon type of mentality. So I'm just curious, like, is this something that you got from your parents, your upbringing, schooling? Like, maybe can you share some of that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has come naturally for me. I've always been, in whatever position I've been in, I've always been a leader of sorts, whether it's in sports or just in group activities. And so I think I've always had this desire to push. Then on the flip side, kind of what I was explaining to you about the being humble and just say, hey, it's okay what happens on this one, right? Think about the long term. I think that a lot of that came from my parents instilling those types of ideas in me. I think it's especially when you're younger, it's really hard to see the bigger picture. And that's the biggest risk that you could make when you're younger, is you can make a decision based on your very limited experience thinking short term, and then it has consequences that are far reaching. So I think my parents have done a good job of kind of showing me the bigger picture and saying, okay, you need to think 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 steps ahead.
That's great. I wanted to back up to my question, which was, after you got this first one under contract, or actually you closed on it, were you still in school or did you drop out at that point? And what was your parents' reaction to once you actually inked all the paperwork?
Right. Yeah. Good question. So the timeline was, first we got the deal under contract, and by that time I was spending the vast majority of my time on Lone Star Capital, starting my business. So once we got the deal under contract, it was shortly after that I left school and was, focusing full time on closing the deal. We closed the deal, and it was kind of this big moment of, wow, this can be done. It's happened, and there's potential here. And so that it is a big deal. And I'm not sure what was going through my parents' mind, but I mean, little did they know that how much that this would affect them, and that they would be transitioning their 30-year business into something different and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's a big moment for me as well. I think it kind of, still, there was a ton of work to be done and there's still plenty to do, but it did validate my decision to focus my efforts on this and see the bigger picture of scaling further.
Excellent. There's a lot of different things that you can do in the multifamily real estate world. And that's one of the things that kind of unlocked the potential for me, because, I kind of went the traditional route, Rob. Like, I did exactly what everyone said you got to do. You got to start small, right? And my strategy was, I had a little bit of a nuance to it. I wanted to start because I live in California, and I wanted cash flow. That was my idea, so that I could replace my active income with the passive. So I wanted to build cash flow from day one. So I went out to Indianapolis and I bought a whole bunch of single family homes. And the strategy was for me to max out my Fannie Mae mortgages so I could get 10 of them under my belt, right? And then at that point, I could figure out what to do next with multifamily. So I was basically like on this buying spree to buy a whole bunch of houses just so I can get the equity in, and then get like the tenants to start to pay down the mortgage for me, and to get like that rental income coming in, and all of that appreciation start to go. And I guess what I wanted to ask you is, what talents did you, because for me, like, I was able to find out what I was good at through that process of doing single families, right? I found out like where it is that I fit in the world. But in multifamily, and especially in syndications, there's a person for every job, and there's a lot of jobs to do. How did you know what your talent was to be able to leverage into that? Like, did you kind of look at the whole thing and see like, oh my gosh, like, how am I going to do this? Like, how did you recognize that there was something that you had that you could contribute to someone else? And what was that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because you do need to bring something to the table, right? You can't just show up and say, all right, I'm here, let's do a deal. And I think to an extent, some people do feel like they can get away with that. Some people think, well, if I'm just a nice warm body and I can be competent and help out, you can only be so helpful and you do need to pick your lane. So starting out for me, I've always been a naturally gravitated towards numbers, spreadsheets, algorithms, things like that. And also I wanted to, especially when getting started, I wanted to figure out how this business worked. How do you make money and what do the numbers look like, right? It's all about the numbers. And so that was my entree into the business. And so I figured out, okay, how do I underwrite the deal? What is a good deal? What is a bad deal? What do those numbers look like? How do you make those decisions? And so I really made that my expertise, which is great. And it's been a very invaluable skill. Every team needs to have that, right? You need to be able to make investment decisions and structure the deal correctly and decide when a risk is too much or what price to pay for a deal. But at the end of the day, that's only so valuable. You could pretty much teach anybody how to underwrite and kind of figure out the numbers and whatnot. So while what I developed for myself was a very valuable skill, it wasn't enough, or at least in my opinion. So but at the time I wasn't really thinking that way. I was just scrambling to do every part of the business. I was wearing all the hats,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
right. And one of the hats that I never wanted to wear and never thought I was good at wearing was raising capital. But someone had to do it. So I was getting to work on that. And something that I realized, especially when you're talking to more sophisticated investors, it's less about being a good salesperson and kind of having a big smile and being able to inspire or whatever the case is. It's about knowing the numbers, being confident in the numbers and the business plan, and just really being able to talk the talk and display your knowledge and defend your assumptions. That is what I discovered that I was actually uniquely good at, is I could take all these complex numbers and full deal business plans and everything and just figure it all out, condense it, summarize it, explain it well, communicate it clearly. So that was my unique skill that I had later uncovered. And so that's what I've continued to work on and have really been able to derive a lot of value from.
That's fantastic. I think that once you find out what that talent is, you can leverage that all the way to your success. And your success is defined by however you define it. And I think that, in my opinion, I think you're successful. And so you've been able to leverage that talent to where you are now. And you seem to be very young as well. So you have a lot more value to add in the future. And so I'm excited to see what that's going to be. So I wanted to ask you one question here to try to change gears a little bit. Let's talk about how real estate investing has changed your life altogether. I know that sometimes, when I ask people, their family is in real estate and they say, just don't get in it. It's a lot of toilets. It's a lot of headache. It's a lot of, all that stuff. So I wanted to ask you, paying homage to real estate investing, how has it changed your life? Is it important to you? And if so, how come?
Yeah, it's very important to me, and it's my business, and it's also my main investment. And something I'm very grateful for is, so regardless of who you are, right? Whether you're an NBA player that's a high income earner, or you're a doctor, or you're in the tech sector, or you're a real estate investor, regardless of how you earn your income, we all have to invest it as well, right? So just because I'm a real estate investor as a business, as a profession, doesn't necessarily mean I'm also a real estate investor in my investing, right? But it often does. And in my opinion, it should, right? It's just so synergistic. If that's your profession, you might as well make it your investing strategy as well, right? It'd be kind of weird if here I am running this real estate investment business, and then I'm just, doing stocks all day and something like that. So my point is, what I'm so grateful for is that my business strategy and my investment strategy are so connected, right? I do deals, I raise capital, I provide returns for my investors. I also get to invest in my own deals. So, right. So while I'm so focused and busy on finding great deals for my investors and then making sure those deals perform for my investors, well, guess what? I'm one of my own investors. So I'm ensuring that I'm getting a good investment for myself as well. So it's just a good, like I said, I'm lazy. I like to double up on my efforts. It's very utilitarian. So that's what I'm super grateful for, right? It's not like, because think about the stress of, like I said, I'll use the NBA player as an example, right? You're an NBA star, you're making 10 million a year or something, and now you have to invest that 10 million, right? You have no idea how, and you don't have the time to learn all these investment things. So for me, I have the the fortune of being able to be a real estate investment expert and then be able to invest my capital along the same lines. So that's really great. The other thing for me is I have always had a negative relationship with spending money. Growing up, spending money always hurt me, and it was always a negative experience, right? Some people will come home from a day of shopping and they go, "Yay, look at all the things I bought. I'm so happy." And then if I had to go buy things, I would come home and kind of, even though those things were good things to buy, I would go home and, gosh, look, think about all the money I spent. So that's been
Yeah.
always my relationship with money. And I've been trying to unlearn it because in many ways it's not healthy. In some ways it's great. Like, you ask me to save money, it's easy to save money, but I do want to be able to enjoy my money. So that's something I'm working on. But the idea that I'm trying to make is about saving/investing, right? When I do invest, I get like on the flip side, right? Someone might come home from a shopping spree and go, "Yeah, I'm so happy from spending." Me, when I invest my money, right? I put 50, 100, $200,000 in a deal or something like that. I go, "Yay, this is so exciting," right? I don't get to see this money for years. And right. So that's also a really great thing that kind of aligns with me and who I am as a person.
I think, Rob, I think what it is I'm an engineer, so I have the mathematical background as well, and so I'm really into this too. And I think what it is for me, because I have the same exact thing. What does it for me, the way that I describe it, is it's just compounding. You're keeping your money employed at all times. It's not relaxing, right? There's velocity of money, like you're moving it from one place to another, and you're only keeping a little bit behind just as like a pad for spending money, right? And then meanwhile, you're rolling all of your whatever you have to keep it working and moving forward. So I think that I love that compounding effect, because as an engineer, you know what the difference is if you start one year and how things, like if you start in year one versus in year 5 in a 30-year time frame, how much of a big difference that's going to be if you have compounded interest over the life of an investment. So that's what I love about all this. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
You're surrounded by engineers. Sorry.
And Rob, I'm just curious too, like if you can kind of give us a peek behind the curtains of like, because you sound like a super busy guy. I know you mentioned a few times you love to be lazy, but I don't know, I have my doubts about that.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, how do you structure your day? Like, do you have a morning routine that you do just to kind of keep it all together? Maybe if you have any advice for people just starting out, just feeling overwhelmed by all the different tasks that they have to do entering the real estate investing world. If you can shed some light on that too, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to talk about that. So there's two ways or two kind of topics I want to hit on. So for those that are looking to start a business or are in the early stages of kind of getting it off the ground, you can't expect to have balance in your life. And so I certainly didn't when I was starting out. It was kind of wake up, throw some clothes on, and then just work all day, and then reluctantly take breaks for eating, etc. Right. And that's great because when you're in those modes, you can just be so productive. You can just, you're just in the zone, but you also have to worry about burnout and this kind of, so I would just kind of pay attention to who you are and what you need, but don't expect that you can have just this perfect day in the life while you're trying to actually build something. But with that being said, I think there are some key things that I've done and still do today that make for a great productive day. And so for me, especially when you're in the middle of that grind, right? And every day you're putting in so much effort and you're seeing this much result, right? Because it's kind of this graph where you're putting in so much effort and you're just getting tiny little indications of result over time. But then you finally, whether it takes 1 year, 2 year, 5 years, you finally reach that tipping point where for every input of effort, you're actually receiving this much of result, right? And it's because you've been putting up all that stored energy over time where you weren't really seeing any results, but you're putting in effort. And then finally it takes off, right? So it's an overnight success that took 10 years. So I think the daily routine, right? What helped me a lot was gratitude journaling and writing down my goals every day. And then also, so here's how the page is structured, right? The first few lines are just gratitude, whatever comes to mind for a minute. And then I'll write my goals down, right? And that keeps me focused. Like, why the heck am I working so hard? What am I working towards, right? So these are the goals. And then at the bottom of the page, I'll write down my priorities or the things I want to get done that day or that week that actually serve those goals, right? So that way I'm fully in alignment. I'm grateful for what I have so I don't freak out and have a breakdown. I've got these goals that really align me. And then I've got my tasks that are in alignment with those goals. So you're just fully aligned, and that just keeps you on the right path. Because it's really what something I haven't thought about, but I used to say a lot is, in school, it's so easy because you have the textbook and you've got the subject matter, and then you just have to get the right answers on the test. I mean, that is so easy. You just have to prepare, work hard, and you've got it. But in the real world, in business, it's not just about getting the right answer in the test. You have to be taking the right test to begin with. And you are the one that actually administers that test, right? You choose what you spend your time on, and you choose what questions to be answering. And so that's really the hard part, right? Anyone can work hard. The actual hard part is to figure out what is worth working hard on. And so I've been fortunate enough that, the things that I've been spending my effort on, whether it's developing my ability to find good deals or to structure partnerships or to build relationships with, debt and equity providers and, building a team, those have turned out to be actually worthwhile things to be focusing on. So anyway, that was a digression from the day in the life, but yeah, definitely journaling in the morning, exercise in the morning, and that's pretty much it. And then something that I'm horrible at and that I would love to bring back into my life is deep work. Just with the structure of my life of phone calls, Zoom calls, things like that, it's so hard to find a 2-hour, 3-hour block where I can just shut everything off and actually make something happen, whether it be write an article or work on my book or record a video or do some thinking about strategy. You have to have those deep works. Deep work is what actually pushes you forward.
Yeah, well said. I think that one of the books that I can recommend to the readers, just like Deep Work, but is that by Cal Newport? He wrote that, right?
Is.
Yeah. And then there's also The One Thing by Gary Keller. If you haven't read that book, well, I'm sure you have, but that's another book that really reminds me that having that time block to focus on one thing that you've intentionally set out is your number one thing that is really important to you, to dedicate that time up front is super important. And for us, for both Sophie and I, that's totally accelerated our success as well in anything that we do. So I would totally agree. And I think everything you said there is just gold. So thank you for that. And one thing I wanted to ask you before we start wrapping this up and heading into our rapid round, and then opening it up for how people can find out more about you, is what is your big why or your vision? So I know you talked about gratitude here and what you do every morning. That's one thing. But what gets you up in the morning? Like, what is your vision for what the future looks like, and who are you helping to serve? All of that good stuff.
Yeah. So I've definitely been consciously thinking about my why, and it's certainly changed over time and kind of its emphasis. But I think at the most base level, humans are pretty simple creatures where we want to be wanted. We want to be wanted. We want to be appreciated. And we want, and so it all really builds based on relationships. And so something I think very strongly is that retirement shouldn't exist. You shouldn't retire because then your life doesn't have purpose. That doesn't mean you should work the same job forever. It doesn't mean you should work a job you don't like forever, but you should always be working on something. It could make money, it could not make money, but it just has to bring you fulfillment and whatnot. So for me, my goal is to never retire. I want to be constantly doing something that inspires me enough to do it, because there will come a time where money doesn't matter to me, and I will have to find ways to continue to motivate and inspire myself. So not retiring is a big why. And so what are the reasons, to keep working? And I think, like I mentioned before, we want to be wanted, and people are very important to us. So in my work, I want to be surrounded by people that inspire me, that are smart, that make great things happen. And then business and work is just a people business. So I get to spend more time with people and be around people, and that will keep me, like I said, inspired. And when I'm old, it'll keep me young if I'm working around sharp, younger people and whatnot. So that's kind of a big why. Another thing that is a fundamental thing about me is teaching. Growing up, I was a math tutor, then a piano teacher, then a quarterback coach. And I feel like I'm always teaching, and I enjoy teaching. I help people with their multifamily business. And so I just finished reading actually a $1 Trillion Coach, which is written by the two founders of Google. And they were talking about, being a good manager in business requires you to be a good coach. You have to be able to coach your people and inspire them and train them and whatnot. So I've always been good at that. I've always enjoyed and liked to be a patient, good teacher, inspire people. So I think those are the big whys.
And so what does your vision look like for the next 3 to 5 years?
3 to 5 years isn't super exciting. Just, multiply and keep doing more of what we're doing.
Okay.
In 5 years, we'll scale to have completed $1 billion of acquisition volume. That'll be a really big milestone. and really establish ourselves as a institutional middle-sized operator that has the capability to operate regionally and really expand from there. Also, the big thing is, aside from just kind of scaling, is new strategies. Adding on additional strategies in the future is going to be crucial to not just our success, but also to keep me motivated and inspired, right? Going back to the idea of, okay, I want to be doing smart things with smart people and learning new strategies and finding ways to create value.
Yeah, well said. Very good stuff.
But Rob, thank you so much. And we so appreciate your time and all of the wisdom, especially at such a young age, everything you've accomplished. And just to be able to share your story with our listeners is a true honor. And so, with that, we'll move into our rapid round. And so they're basically 5 questions that we ask all of our guests, and they're just meant to be answered very quickly. And so with that being said, the first question is, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why?
The biggest impact, I would say The Power of Now was a big one for me, because it really kind of opened the door to mindfulness, meditation, those types of books, which are kind of more spiritual and whatnot. So yeah, that opened the door to that kind of learning.
Awesome. And if people wanted to emulate your success, what's the first actionable thing that they could do to follow in your footsteps?
I would say, this is vague, but you have to take massive action, whatever that means for you, right? If you're thinking about whatever it is that you think about doing, you just do it now and do lots of it, and don't worry about failure, and put yourself out there. And then the other thing is to find a way to add value to somebody that can help you grow, right? You can't just go to a mentor and say, can I pick your brain? Because that person thinks, oh, wow, they just want to literally suck value from my brain, right?
Exactly.
You have to find a way to actually, and fake it till you make it. You have to find a way to actually add real or perceived value to someone who can add value back to you in a big way.
Wonderful. And what small thing do most people not know about you?
Small thing that most people don't know about me.
It gets all of our guests. This question gets all of our guests.
I speak Russian.
Nice.
That is cool. Nice. Do that as a major in college, or like a minor in college, or is your family from there, or how did that
my mom's side of the family's from Moscow. She moved here when she was 21. So I was the first, and then my dad was born in Canada. So I was the first person to be born in America. I grew up for the first couple of years in the home speaking only Russian. So I couldn't talk to my essentially American dad for the first couple, first year of speaking.
Oh, wow.
How crazy.
Wow. That's
Nice.
pretty cool.
But now I've forgotten it. Now I'm my Russian's terrible now.
Do you pick it up pretty quickly if you were to be in a conversation?
Yeah, definitely. I can understand it very well, speak it okay. And like you said, it gets rusty quickly, but then you start using it and then it comes back. I feel like every time I talk to my grandma on FaceTime, she says, oh, wow, it sounds like you haven't, practiced your Russian in so long. You've lost it all.
Cool.
Oh, I totally understand. And how do you like to unwind and restore your creative juices?
I like how you asked that, because you're not saying, okay, well, how do you like to relax? But how do you like to relax actually with the intention of restoring creativity and focus and whatnot? So for me, some ways that I like to unwind. So tonight I'm going to do yoga, which I kind of stopped at the beginning of the pandemic, and now I'm getting back into, because it's just so important for the mind and body. So yoga is really great for me. Another thing that I don't do nearly enough, but I'm trying to get back into, is playing piano, which I have been doing ever since I was little. And so playing piano is one of those things where it's just like meditation, where you can't imagine bringing yourself to sit down and start playing. But then as soon as you start playing and you get into it, 15 minutes goes by and you go, oh, wow, it's just playing, and you just keep playing, and then you're really happy that you did it. So those types of things are great to kind of relax into. And then another thing is, this is not very relaxing, but it's more relaxing than working on something, is I just like to take a notepad, the same one that I might write my goals in, and just stare at a blank page and just think about, okay, what matters? How do I get to where I want to go? What is the next project? How do I just think? My dad always tells me that thinking's free.
Yeah, I love that.
Wow, that's
Good stuff.
Yeah,
Pro tip.
love it. And then last question is, what's your favorite vacation spot?
Idealistically, in my mind, and I feel like a lot of people agree with this, they think of like a beachy vacation. And I think those are great, but I think those are great just in small doses. This summer I spent quite a bit of time in kind of some more beachy destinations, and it's good, but it kind of gets a little boring of just kind of laying by the beach and reading and hanging out. So I do like cities. And so one of my favorite recent vacations was in London, where I was just able to hang out with a lot of friends and just live the city life, which is kind of similar to the life I enjoy living in New York.
Awesome, man. That's great. You got a lot of wisdom, man, for someone who's
And
just.
can we ask, Rob? I have to know how old you are.
I'm 24.
Amazing. Yeah.
Man.
So impressive.
Yeah, that's incredible. You're only like 30%, 20% or 30% through with life, and your productive years are like half of that. So that's pretty crazy, man. You're gonna do some amazing things, and I can't wait to follow along with what you're gonna be doing in the future.
Thank you so much. Since you mentioned off air, you mentioned when I was hanging out with Rick Martin in LA. So I'm assuming you know Hunter Thompson as well.
Yes, sir.
So Hunter and I were working out in his gym in LA, and we were talking about just, I like to pick his brain because, he's a little older, a few steps ahead, and he's running his very successful business. And so we were talking about how sometimes my age gets in the way of things, or, kind of hurts me. Sometimes it maybe helps me. And he told me, yeah, you know what? You're 24 right now. You have maybe 3 more years of people reacting positively when they hear your age. Because right now you say 24 and you're successful and they go, oh, that's so cool. Congrats. That's amazing. And they're inspired. But he said, once you're 27, 28, and you're this next level of success, now they're going to be like, he's 28, I'm 35. And, they might start getting competitive or jealous and things. So he gave me a warning that, you're going to only have a few more years of this luxury where, you say your age and everyone goes, oh.
That's pretty crazy. I never thought of it that way. But
so you can enjoy
awesome.
it.
Yeah, no, it's
we'll
be
see.
Fun. We're actually headed out. That's the reason why we're leaving Indianapolis this weekend, is we're heading out to Austin for his Raise Masters event. So it's going to be pretty cool. So hopefully, I don't know if I'll see you there, but you at least know the same people as us, which is really cool. And we actually met Rick Martin in Indianapolis when he was out here looking at single families back like in 2018, 2017. So
wow.
Him and I go back a long ways, but we didn't really keep in touch too much until we started running in the same circles again, which is really odd. But in any event, that's kind of an aside. But anyway, Rob, let's go ahead and start wrapping this up. I wanted to also open this up for you to be able to give the audience a little bit more of an insight as to how they can reach out to you and learn more about what you have going on at Lone Star Capital. So please go ahead and take it away. Let us know how people can find out more about you and what you have going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So throughout this wonderful conversation, I've barely really shared about what the heck we do at Lone Star.
Yeah.
So we are we're a vertically integrated multifamily owner operator focused on Texas workforce housing. We have our own property management company based in Houston. So that's our boots on the ground. We own all across Texas. We have over 1,200 units, and we raise capital from high net worth investors, as well as family offices and private equity firms. So we work with, a very diverse range of investors. And for those that are interested in learning more about working with us, investing with us, partnering with us, you can head over to lscre.com. That's our website. You can check out some of our example properties. Also, you can get a free download at the top of our website of the underwriting model that I personally built and that we use every day to analyze hundreds of deals per year. So feel free to pick up that download. And if you're interested in learning more about our deal flow process, you can get my book on Amazon, which is the definitive guide to underwriting multifamily acquisitions.
That's great. I'm sure that there's going to be some people that are going to be looking you up right after this, man. Thank you so much for being on the show. And we're so glad that you came on to share your wisdom with us at the ripe old age of 24.
Yeah. Thank you for the conversation. It was great.
Yeah, no, this was fantastic. So that being said, you guys, for all the listeners who have gotten all the way to the end here, first of all, thank you guys for listening and enjoying this great content from Rob and some of our other guests. If you guys want to hear more, please make sure you like and subscribe, or wherever you're interacting with us, watching this, listening to it. That can be YouTube or any place where you listen to podcasts. Please leave us a like and review, comment with us, interact with us, give us feedback. We eat that stuff for breakfast. So please just let us know what we can do to help add more value to you, because in the end, this is to serve you, to help inspire you to escape your active rat race situation and get into more passive income in the end. So, all right, take care, everyone. Have a fantastic week.